Thanks for joining me today. It's another episode of Stand on Guard. We continue to watch the standoff at the Universal Ostrich Farms. And I don't know how this is going to turn out. I was hopeful yesterday. I'm not so hopeful today. Sorry, my earphones were down here. And I'm literally, putting the show together because it's changing by the hour. We'll be right back with more of that information in a minute.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
Your home is your castle. We're calling on the government to introduce and immediately pass the Stand on Guard law.
But we also need to resolve to resist.
Yes, please like the station. Please like the channel. Stand on Guard. The show is Stand on Guard. The station is Krayden's right. We appreciate your help in any way. And I've been reporting on the situation at the Universal Ostrich Farms now for 4 months. I looked it up yesterday. Started my first interview with Bryan Passifiume in May. Nobody was covering the story then. And finally, we got an incredible response from Rebel News. Has been on the scene. Drea Humphrey, great job of reporting. This is what reporting is all about. Going to the scene. I wish I was on the scene of the crime today. This is a crime what's going on here. This is the federal government thinking it has the right to invade private property, steal and kill livestock, and destroy somebody's livelihood. Who's that somebody? Well, they're agricultural people. They're farmers working in the interior of BC, a place I know very well, just north of Kelowna. I grew up in BC. I grew up in Vancouver Island. We used to go to Kelowna quite a bit. I know that area. It is geographically and politically very much like southern Alberta. And I have to tell you this morning, my heart is going out to Katie and her mother and her stepfather and her father as well. Katie was in jail overnight. She was released this morning. I got a text from her. I'm hoping she can come on the show. If she doesn't, I quite understand why. This is a horrible time for this family. And the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and I'll show you videos of this later. We'll show you the video later. And the broadcast today is all about how phony, how fake the Liberal government is. The Liberal CFIA showed up without face masks or hazmat suits on, right? 2 days ago. It took them 2 days to put the hazmat suits on. If they're really serious, if they're really concerned that these ostriches might be bearing some kind of virus, like avian flu, why would they show up and for 48 hours walk around the farm without any protection? Either they're idiots, and yes, they are idiots, or they don't believe their own cover story. They're liars. We have a government that lies to us chronically and constantly. And my guest today is going to confirm that. And that, of course, is Brian Fumigate, who is on the show today with us. And he's a Toronto Sun reporter and a damn good one. He caught the government in its own lie. He caught Mark Carney doing a phony news conference in front of a fake Hollywood set while he tried to sell affordable housing to Canadians. Well, what's going on at the farm right now is also fake news. These ostriches aren't unhealthy. They've been healthy for almost a year. In fact, the quarantine would be up in November, December, if they allowed these birds to continue to thrive. This is murder. This is killing completely unnecessary killing because they want to what? Intimidate farmers. They want to terrorize Canadian citizens, and they want to say, Big Pharma, we're in your pocket. That's what this is all about. And let me show you some of the incredible. Yeah. Now, these are the people in the CFIA. Contact them. We'll have this in the description. Contact them and bug them, bother them. This is a letter from Romney Reynolds, the executive director of the Okanagan Humane Society, saying, stop this unnecessary killing. They're not even allowed to feed these ostriches. What happened to the left-wingers I used to know who believed in animal rights and didn't think it was a good idea to kill things for no reason? All they give a damn about now is vaccines and climate change. That's all they give a damn about. There's another letter of support for the farm from Lauren Dirksen, local MLA, who's saying, stop this craziness. Member of Parliament for the area, Scott Anderson, Conservative MP. The timing caught us by surprise, and I'm in a different part of the country. My chief of staff is at Universal Farms, and she managed to have the drones removed because they were terrifying the birds, one of which flung itself into the wire fence in panic. These people are animals. The CFIA are animals, and the RCMP who are there, they're not working for you and I. They're thugs. They're thugs. That's all
when all the
they
police
are.
drones are flying so low. Go away! The police drones are flying so low. They're putting our birds through fences. You want to talk humane? Here's our girl. She just went through a fence, got stuck. She's don't know if she can get up. They're causing these animals to kill themselves. They're going through fences. They're hitting fence posts because their drones are flying so low. Do you see this? This is life. This is humane. These are healthy animals that are suffering.
As well. And we also have other persons that are coming in. The warrant also talks about the authority and the use of force if necessary. We don't want to use force.
And
Is that the
incredible.
a blue truck that is that?
Just incredible. And I don't know what to say. But Bryan Passifiume has joined us now. We're gonna go to that this interview. Bryan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invite.
And you know, I'm a huge fan of your writing, and I'm a huge fan of journalists who go out and seek the truth. That's what I tried to do. I worked for the mainstream media for many years. I even wrote for CBC. People don't believe that, but I did. And I admire the work you do because you try to find truth from lies. And this is what you did last week with this incredible story. And as you were watching there, I led this morning with this ostrich story in British Columbia. I've been covering this for 4 months. Some of your columnists have been covering it as well. I salute the Toronto Sun for doing the great job it does in uncovering the news and the great job that you're doing uncovering the news. But the world is watching right now on what's happening. And before we get to your Mark Carney expose, I'm thinking, how does Canada look? We've got this. This is what killed me, Brian. We had this Canadian Food Inspection Agency mafia, and that's all I can call them, showing up without hazmat suits. And they didn't even bother to put a hazmat suit on for 48 hours. And they say, whoops, we forgot our costumes. These birds are supposed to be deadly. And so 48 hours later, they come back again with their hazmat suits on. Well, if those birds were really infected with avian flu, I think they already got it because they were standing around them. And of course, thousands of people have been standing around these ostriches all summer long. Nobody, not one single person got avian flu this summer in British Columbia, but they're not sure they got it at the farm. So if this was really an outbreak, I think we would see a lot of CFIA agents dropping right now, but we're not because this is a government con job. What's your take on this, Brian?
Well, to be honest, I haven't really been following the story too much, but the thing is, we live in a society right now where it's kind of like the truth really doesn't matter. It's more about sort of who can get their narrative out there quicker, the fastest. The government obviously has a much larger pulpit than the rest of us in order to do that, and mated by certain, mainstream media outlets that are somewhat friendly to the government. But yeah, it's unfortunate. It's really sad to see that that the standards of what journalism, just from my perspective, stood for, which was truth and for unbiased opinions and things like that. Really, it's really fallen by the wayside. It really is unfortunate that we can't really count on. I'm going to say most media outlets for truthful, unbiased reporting, because they just don't really exist anymore. And it's almost a product of our society right now, is that people really don't want the truth. People, it just seems that, I'm not saying everybody, that the majority of mainstream media consumers are really more interested in getting opinions rather than facts, getting, little pre-digested nuggets that they can take to the water cooler every morning. Well, I guess whatever passes for the water cooler these days, now that people don't go to the office for work anymore. But it really is. We're in kind of a really sad state of society right now.
Well, yeah, it's funny you should say that, because I remember from my journalism 101 at Carleton University, where I went many years ago, they used to talk about how the newspapers were in the 19th century, and they were basically aligned with a political party, both in the United States and Canada. So, we still have like the Kingston Whig Standard, I think is the last surviving member of that club. And that literally meant they were a liberal paper. And the Globe and Mail used to be staunchly conservative. And in the United States, you had Republican papers and Democratic papers. So if you wanted to read the news the way you wanted to hear it, or see it, or read it, well, you picked up the appropriate paper. And I really think this is how social media is becoming. And it's sad, because now we get propaganda, whether on the right or the left, and they don't want to hear objective truth anymore. And I think we need more objective truth in journalism, not less. And we're getting, I think, blindsided by both the right and the left, because they don't want to talk to each other. We're living in these
You're frozen. I don't know if you can see me or hear me.
what's the word? Yeah, okay, you're back there. So I'm sorry, I don't know what happened there. But I think that's what you're saying, is social media going the way of the 19th century newspapers, where we've got either you toe the party line, or you have nothing to say about the issue.
Yeah, I totally blame social media for this, because social media has really gotten us out of the habit of thinking objectively, where nowadays it's much more comfortable and a lot less challenging to surround ourselves with people who think the same way we do, like the tribalism, that kind of thing. And that leads to some pretty dangerous echo chambers on both the right and the left. I'm not saying it's the purview of one side or the other, but it's, and I see it every day with people I interact with, family members and friends of mine who come up to me with some incredible nonsense that they picked up somewhere, thinking, it's obviously true, and you're just covering up because you're not covering it. It's like, well, I'm not covering it because it's BS. It's, I don't know if you're allowed to swear in your podcast, but I'll just say it's BS. So it's
go ahead.
Okay, it's bullshit. There you go.
It's bullshit.
Yeah, and you can't do anything to convince them. Where 20, 30 years ago, that was never the case. 20 or 30 years ago, people had the sense to be able to, read something in a paper or watch it on the news and say, oh, that kind of weird. So that, if it challenges their beliefs, then they do a little bit of research on it. They look into it. They go to the library. They look at other news sources. They think objectively to make opinions. But unfortunately that, and now we see it with people relying on AI to do their thinking for them. I get tons of people like sending me screenshots of Google or Grok AI with whatever nonsense it's come up with and saying, oh, look, you're wrong because the AI is telling me the truth. Well, we're not at that point where we can rely on computer thinking to do our thinking for us. But it's kind of sad that, people are going that way. People are sort of losing the ability to think and, come up with their own ideas objectively, and just relying on what, resting on whatever makes them, people aren't challenged by opinions anymore. People aren't letting themselves be challenged by different thoughts and different ideas. And when we saw that during the pandemic, people were just so quickly, willing to embrace, we need injections, we need the vaccines, we don't need injections, we don't need the vaccines. Nobody was doing really any critical thinking. They were just sort of latching onto whatever we saw, and the government took advantage of that. And we saw some incredible displays of government overreach when it comes to things like vaccination and wearing masks and things like that, and that went unquestioned by such a large portion of the population, where I don't want this to turn into a pro-anti-vaccine conversation, but it really goes into sort of what the how we've changed as a society when it comes to objective thinking, where if your thinking is outside of what is generally considered the most popular opinion, then you're an outsider. It really is sad.
It is very sad, and I'm thinking what's happening right now in Edgewood, BC, at this Universal Ostrich Farms. For me, and I know it from a lot of folks, it's just waking up to the story. But I've been saying for months, this is the Freedom Convoy all over again. These are people who are being oppressed and picked on and persecuted and prosecuted by the federal government because they're doing what? They're finding out if herd immunity exists. And that's suddenly verboten, because maybe the federal government's in the pocket of Big Pharma, or maybe they're getting a lot of donations, the Liberal Party, and I would say the Conservative Party as well. They've been completely silent about this. They don't want to talk about it. But before I forget, I want to get on to your scoop last week, which I find incredible. That, and my first question for you, I know you put this on your X site about how Mark Carney had the gall to stand before a Hollywood set and announce his housing policy, of which there is not a single house being built right now. But this should have been front page news on the Toronto Star and Toronto Sun, and every place else. But did you actually do a story about, did they allow you to do a story about this in addition to posting this on X?
Well, I didn't do a story on the revelation afterwards. I've 8 tips have been filed, and I'll do the follow up after that once we found out how much this cost. But yeah, the genesis of this whole thing was that this was the Sunday before the House resumed after their summer break. The Prime Minister announced that there's going to be a housing announcement, and I looked at the address. I live in Ottawa, and it's on Maryville Road in Nepean, and I kind of know that area. It's sort of on the way to the airport, and it's a pretty built up area. And the address they gave was in the middle of a hydro corridor. And I'm thinking, well, this is kind of a weird place to build homes. Like I live in a suburb just outside of Ottawa where there's tons of home construction going on. Like I could walk 5 minutes from where I am right now and encounter a home under construction. Like, why they didn't decide to do it at a legitimate site, I have no idea. But anyway, so we show up at the site, and it's a graded lot in a hydro easement, and they have it was hosted by this modular home company in Nepean outside of Ottawa, and they erected a bunch of modular units and stuff, and which is a way that they're building houses these days. They prefabricate the units in a factory and then ship them out there. It's a lot more quick and efficient than blah 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 blah. So show up to the thing, and and I'm standing there with some other reporters and looking around, going like, this doesn't really seem like a development. Like there's no utilities buried. It's a freshly graded lot. Like I've been to plenty of home construction sites. It's not finely graded gravel. It's mud, dirt. They didn't even have any porta potties for the construction workers. It was pretty much just all trucked in, and they didn't even take the crane down that they used to put the modular units up. They just repurposed the jig they used to do it and hung a Canadian flag from it. And I asked one of the during the press conference, I asked one of the PMO staffers I know, and I asked her, I said, is this a real site, or is just kind of just there for the for the show? And she just kind of gave a big theatrical shrug. But yeah, it really kind of struck me as weird. So a few days later, I rode by just to see what was going on there, and everything was gone. It was all the units that were there were gone. All the construction was gone. It was just an excavator and a bulldozer just grading a bit more of the site. I don't know what's going to be going there, but certainly not going to be housing. So yeah, it really kind of, there's been a lot of parallels to like Potemkin villages and things like that. And it was just kind of a staged thing. And it really kind of struck me as weird. Like there's a lot of house construction going on in Ottawa, not too far from where we were. Lisa McLeod, the former Nepean MPP, I was chatting with her about it too. She lives in the area, and she said, yeah, there's tons of home construction very close, and why they just didn't go there, I don't know. They were partnering with this prefabricated home company in Nepean. A lot of these companies love latching onto these political announcements. You see these a lot during elections. Like for example, when Doug Ford rolled through Ottawa during the provincial election, he went to some local fabrication company to do and they love doing that because it's free advertising, and they get to the fruits of their political donations for their business. So they could have made this all go away by the Prime Minister explaining, saying, look, this is just an example of what we can do with prefabricated units. We got all this done in like 2 days or whatever, and you could have, but there was a very heavy implication during the press conference, and that this was Canada's housing policy at work. We're here showing the hard the men and women hard at work building homes, and that was the implication. Like they even took the Prime Minister on a tour of the site, as if this is this is what we're doing, this is our housing policy in action kind of thing. But yeah, it just really seemed incredibly disingenuous. And yeah, ATIPs have been filed to see how much exactly this cost. But yeah, it was just, it was comical.
It's interesting to me too, because at the beginning of that news conference, he said, we're, his exact word, tantalizingly close to my riding in Ottawa.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, and as you just said, was he tantalizingly close to real construction projects? Is he that
tantalizingly close to real home building?
And it's incredible to me. But do you not see this as a government that is just so mendacious? They don't really care if Canadians believe it or not, that they're willing to put out this crap and think that, well, it doesn't matter because Canadians are that stupid, or Canadians are that absolutely accepting of whatever the government says. And it concerns me because they went through an election campaign. The Liberals went through an election campaign, and believe me, I wasn't very fond of the Conservative one either, but the Liberals went through an election campaign with this elbows up crap. And it was, we're going to fight Donald Trump. We're going to be on the right side of history here. We're going to do it. And it was all nonsense, of course, because Donald Trump and Mark Carney go back decades. They're very old friends. They had no intention of fighting with each other. Mark Carney knows Donald Trump is more powerful than he is. But he pushed this narrative throughout the whole election campaign. He was going to come back as a strong leader. And I'm wondering if that didn't set the stage. Are we going to get more of this lying from this government? That here's a phony news conference. You accepted that, and only one reporter decided to inspect the truth of that news, and found it wanting. Are we going to see more of that from this government? That it's just whatever they can get away with, they'll try.
I think it's just that nobody cared to, nobody, once the press conference was over, I don't think anybody really gave a shit, if it was real or not, particularly, my colleagues in the press gallery, and a lot of other people, like, to them, it was just like, press conference over, that's it, done and dusted. But really, it's just the fact that nobody in the PMO stopped to consider the optics of this is really concerning. The fact that no one, and we saw this during the Trudeau years, where they just kind of just barreled through and didn't think of the consequences of sort of what they were doing and how it was coming across. Whereas, ever since ever since Carney came into power, we've been hearing all these stories, and I've seen it firsthand about how, the PMO is kind of like, the adults are back in the room right now. Like for example, every Tuesday and Wednesday they have caucus and cabinet meetings in West Block. Whereas before, during the Trudeau years, the meetings would start at 10 and people would just sort of breeze through whenever. The prime minister would cruise through like 10, maybe quarter after 10 or whatever, and answer some questions. And the meeting started at 10, but people would kind of trickle in, up until about 10:30. Well, when Carney started, he put a rule out: the door gets locked at 10 o'clock. If you're not there by 10 o'clock, you're not coming in. And it's funny now, like all the reporters camped out outside the committee room in West Block. It's like 8:58 comes around and it's just a big wall of MPs walking in, and they don't talk to anybody anymore. But really, it's that's kind of like the new professionalism that we're supposed to be seeing in the PMO. But it seems that they can't. Having a hard time ditching the old ways, and I think this is an example of that. Is the fact that, like I said before, like that no one stopped to consider the optics of maybe just doing this they still want associated with the prefab home company, want to do it at their factory, want to do it in their yard. They must have a lot of space to do that. Why go to the effort of making what people are describing as a Potemkin village to hold a press conference, then tear it all down, and then that's it. It's just the fact that no one ever considered that in the PMO it just goes to show that things are it's just sort of same band, new lead singer.
Yeah, exactly. And are you tired of seeing people in hard hats lined up behind political leaders? And Carney does it constantly, but I must say Polyev is guilty of this too. I find this
politics is the game. Yeah.
I just find this so distracting because these people don't want to be there. And remember, maybe you might remember this. I was actually the first person to pick it up. When there was Trudeau was doing an announcement, and one of the workers in the hard hat removed his hat and put it over his face because it was like a silent protest that I don't want to be here. My boss told me to be here. I don't want to stand behind this man, but I've been ordered to. And I am so sick of these firing shot angles of people standing behind leaders and looking like they're all four square behind them. And they've been forced to do that, and it's just to me it's what's wrong with politics today is it's all artificial, and I think that's what we come back to the beginning of
they're called conversation. They're called potted plants. That's what they call it. Like at a press conference. Like, for example, you see a press conference where they have like one guy speaking and a bunch of like solemn looking MPs. We saw it yesterday with the gun control or the gun grab announcement yesterday at West Block. You got Gary. I'm not going to even
can't pronounce his name either.
Yeah, the public safety minister standing in front of the podium with Natalie Provost next to him, and a bunch of potted plants behind him. That's what those are called. Those people who stand behind doing nothing they're called potted plants. That's a little inside baseball for your viewers there. But yeah, that's politics. So that's how the machine works. That's how because no one wants a press conference with nothing behind them. People want that active backdrop, and if they can get people behind there, it's kind of like political staging 101. They want them. It's sort of an effort to humanize who is there. So you're never going to see that go away. And you're asking me if I'm tired of seeing it. Not at all, because that's part of the game. That's part of Canadian politics. That's part of world politics, really. You go you see Donald Trump doing Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, any U.S. president doing those big announcements. You've always got the seas of potted plants behind them. Anywhere you go, you see the same thing. But it's politics is fake. Politics is phony. Politics is show business. I sometimes consider myself more of a showbiz reporter than a politics reporter, because just some of the nonsense that goes on, it's really more for entertainment value. It's and that's sad that that's the way that politics has become in this age. It's nothing new, but it's the way it works. And it's you just got to the key to winning elections and the key to being a successful politician is gaming the game, knowing how to play it and playing it well. And I think this last federal election will definitely be talked about and written about in textbooks for a very long time as to how best to lose an election. And it's just that they, Poilievre and Carney both played the game, and Carney ended up playing it just a bit better than Poilievre. It's unfortunate, but that's how it works. That's politics.
I think that's probably a very accurate assessment of the last federal election. Yes, Poilievre didn't quite get it until it was too late. But wanted to ask you, we were talking about the public safety minister, and I won't attempt to pronounce his name either because I forget it right.
And you're talking to somebody with an unpronounceable last name as it is, so I feel his pain.
Not only should this man not be the public safety minister, he's got so many marks against his record in terms of being a probable problem for the government. It amazes me. This is who Mark Carney appointed to be public safety minister, not housing minister, not immigration, but no, public safety minister, one of the most incredibly important functions of the government. And this man has all kinds of potential violations on his record. He's been asked to resign several times. Do you think his latest outburst I just found comical, that he said, "Oh, I've had vitriolic," I think his exact word, vitriolic hate messages on my social media. Do you think in a country like Canada, where we're afraid to even condemn an issue for fear of being branded as a hate projectionist, do you really think there's any credence to that claim from the public safety minister?
But that he's getting hate? Oh, definitely. Every politician gets hate. That's part of the game. Everybody, if you put yourself in that position to be an elected official, it doesn't matter if you're a cabinet minister or a backbencher, you're going to get hate. People are frustrated with the government. People are frustrated with life. We live in incredibly challenging times right now, and politicians and politics is an easy way for people to vent. But yeah, it's funny. I think the whole question of the public safety minister's suitability for the role is really, if it didn't come to the forefront with the whole, Tamil Tiger thing, it definitely is coming to the forefront with his little candid conversation with his tenant over the gun grab. Almost every question that I was at the press conference yesterday at West Block, where he was announcing the gun grab, and every question that the reporters were asking was, why are you still a public safety minister? Why, do you think that it's appropriate for you to govern a program that he very candidly in this tape said is a bad policy? And the only reason it's being kept in is to please voters in Quebec. Well, again, part of the whole politics game. It's not about popular policy. It's about instilling policy that's going to ensure that your party gets reelected the next time around. That's what every politician cares about, and that's what the goal of every policy point out there. But yeah, it's I think that this is just going to add fuel to the fire. I've heard from my people behind the scenes is that every time one of these fuck ups happen, that Carney just gets madder and madder. And I think that you're going to see, we've already seen the departure of quite a few Trudeau area cabinet ministers recently, and granted, Gary wasn't in cabinet for very long under the Trudeau years. He was a glorified backbencher until he got a portfolio pretty recently. So I don't know if it's fair to put him in the same category as Freeland, as Lametti and all those other people. But I have a very sneaking suspicion that we're going to see a cabinet shuffle maybe by the end of the year. And I think that he's going to be shuffled out. I think that his time as public safety minister is numbered, and I think that the PMO pays attention to stuff like this. The Sri Lankan terror thing, and now this whole conversation, basically the public safety minister undermining one of the keystone policy points from the Trudeau era that Carney has brought forward. I think his days are numbered. I think that if he's going to stay in cabinet, I definitely think he's not going to be in.
Well, it's bad enough being a liability, but when you're an idiot as well, which this man clearly is, it makes it worse. So doesn't seem to understand the gravity of the situation at all. So, Brian, thank you for joining me today. It's always a pleasure to read your work. You do such fantastic truth telling, and I say that because few journalists understand that concept today. It's it's towing the party line. It's ignoring the news. And I tell you, they've ignored the news for 4 months in Edgewood, BC, with the CFIA killing 399 healthy ostriches. And this, to me, is another freedom convoy. And I have reached out to so many people over this to prevent it. But thank you for the work you do, Brian, because it's incredible. And we need more reporters in the mainstream media, what's left of it, like you. Because otherwise, as you say, we're going to have people listening to social media and not questioning what they see sometimes. And I think that's very important. We always have to question it, certainly as journalists, but journalists aren't questioning anything anymore. And it's a sad day when I say that, but journalists do not question reality anymore. They don't question what's going on, and they just print what the government tells them to print. So thank you for doing the outbursts and your work. I thought it was appreciated, Brian. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me on. I'm always happy to be on. Thank you.
Talk to you again. Thank you. That was, yes, it was delightful to have Brian on the show today. I want to show you a couple of more clips from the Ostrich Farm, because this is incredible. Police. How do you describe it? Remember when we thought the police were on our side? I grew up thinking that. I was a military guy. I wore a uniform. My father was in the military. I thought the police were on our side. If you paid your taxes, reluctantly maybe, you did your duty. You obeyed the law. That the police were on your side. They're not anymore. They're on the side of the thugs, and the police have become thugs.
Good to see you. Glad you're all here, kinda, in a weird way.
You've mentioned good things about PLT before.
I've what?
You've mentioned good things about PLT before. We've met before.
Yeah, we've met. Met. Yeah, we've all met.
Yeah.
We've had some conversations. It's been an interesting time.
Yeah.
Really sorry it came down to this.
Yes.
Do you think that the family's going to be given an opportunity to be able to get this stay order in? You guys going to hold off until they find out whether that's going to happen or not?
So right now, just letting you know, I'm dealing with Jeff.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, you know what? I actually shouldn't be doing this. You're right. You're right. Thank you. Yep. Thank you. Yeah, last thing I'm going to do is mess with what the family wants. Another gentleman here. Doing his job, just doing my job. That's what they always say. Oh, this one's doing up his window. He don't want nothing to do with me. A couple in there. One's got a mask on. Yeah. One in there's got a mask. This one doesn't have a mask. They're on their phones. Maybe they're running their socials. Who knows? Yeah, all kinds of folks in here doing their job. Showing up for work. It's always good to show up for work. Police vans, paddy wagons, RCMPs, all for some ostriches. There's a couple here. That one's on the phone too. Yeah, good. There you go. Yeah, I don't think they like being filmed necessarily. Well, that's too bad. Do a crappy job, that's what happens. Twist ties, all of the implements. Gentlemen are working today. Sunday, hope you get overtime. Here we are. Hey, gentlemen.
Hello.
Look at that. Look at that. There you go. Doing the work here. Getting the jobs done. for the RCs and the MPs. Yeah, there another couple. Hey guys, look at that. Yeah. Yeah, you want to be seen? Well, you're seen now, aren't you? Yeah. Getting some overtime today. Yeah, why not? That's a nice little car. I've driven one before. It's pretty cool. There's a gentleman there. Another gentleman here. Good to see us. Well, kind of. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we want to see all their faces. We want every single one of these guys to be responsible, personally responsible for killing healthy ostriches and a family's livelihood. There's a couple guys in there. Young guy, he seems to be having fun. Maybe you see his face. You want to see his face for sure. I mean, honestly. I don't see too many badge numbers. They don't like to be.
That's how our cops behave today, with people who have respected the law their entire life. How do they behave with carjackers, rapists, and murderers? Oh, we'll give them a break. Not their fault. They're following government guidelines and regulations, but the cops have become the enemy of the people. That's all I can, and they are. They don't give a damn about your rights. No, they don't.
All right, here is another angle of the fire here. Now, what I know so far about it, and this is of course all happening in the moment, is that the allegations from inside with the farmers is that it appears as though the fire has been lit somehow from the inside of the bales. And that seems consistent with the smoke pattern. You've got obviously police who are already on site here, are on alert. You've got some walking over this way, probably investigating what's happening. And this is all going down. I'll see over here. It's unclear how much damage is done to the hay bales, but the wall is obviously still up. The authorities, let's see. Hi. Do you know anything else about the fires?
What would you like to know?
Anything you saw? I was in there talking while they were.
I first came up here at 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was basically what you see now.
Okay.
So, first smelled the smoke probably half an hour or more before that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I can tell you.
Thank you. What I can say from the inside is that the farm's representative, Jeff, inside is saying they'll work with whoever. They obviously want to know who did this too. It's not safe for the whole farm. They're saying, of course, the farmers had nothing to do with any of this. And they said that all of the flames are out. Oh.
All the flames are clearly not out.
This is not very good video.
Like we were up here, remember we had all of the ostriches in there? Do you think any of our people are going to go be?
All right, so that's the latest we have from the farm. I was hoping to have Katie on the show today.
Fire, it looks like, and a lot of smoke billowing out, maybe possible multiple locations at the Universal Ostrich Farm.
Yeah, and that's where we are right now. I don't know how far the fire has progressed. But it doesn't seem to appear that the fire was started by the supporters. There's hundreds of people still there. And I have said, do passive resistance. Force them to remove you while the cameras are on. So we're not certain exactly, but my guess is that this was started by the CFIA or the RCMP. Why would they do that? To create a crisis. I think that's probably what happened here. Somebody, I don't think the farm did this. So that's my guess. I don't know that. I can't conclude that, but that's my guess is what happened here. Because why would the people inside the farm want to start a fire? What benefit is it to them? Absolutely none. But I think this is a literal smokescreen to contain what is a mass killing of healthy ostriches because the government is in the pocket of Big Pharma. And that's really where we are right now. We'll update you later if anything else happens in the story. And thank you for watching today. This is very, very tragic. This could be the beginning of real change in Canada. It could be the beginning. We'll see what happens, and we're watching very closely.